And boom. Yeah, I'm wearing a hat. Ollie has already given me enormous grief about the fact that I'm wearing a hat. You know the thing about wearing a hat is some days your hair just looks stupid. That's all there is. I've just got in, I've been walking the dog. Hello, I'm Russ Kane. This is Men's Radio Station. And this is the ABC of CBD. That means, of course, we are live, we are uncensored all around the world, which means also that British time, UK time, GMT at 6 o'clock on a Thursday. But before we do anything else, I look kind of weird in this hat. What do you think? I put it round the other way, and then with my reading glasses, I look like Benny Hill. It wasn't cool at all. I looked ridiculous. Anyway, it is time to bring on the hunk of hemp, the Maharaja of marijuana, the Count of cannabinoids. It can only be Ollie Mammon.
Hey, happy Thursday.
No.
Shall we go back and do it again?
No, yeah,
let's go back and do it again.
That was just like lame.
I didn't mean
to do it again, and you're going to come on
Fine.
with your normal fabulousness.
Fine.
I'm sorry, we have standards here on Men's Radio Station.
Sorry. Right, hold on.
Far below them. Thank God this isn't live. Right, ladies and gentlemen, time to bring on the hunk of hemp, the Maharaja of marijuana, the Count of cannabinoids. It's only Ollie Mammon.
What's up? How you doing?
Thank you.
First of all, I'll tell you why I went into a little zone out. I was trying to think about
why?
how much more I could rip Russ to shreds for wearing that hat. So he's already got basically all of the Peaky Blinders you could potentially get thrown at in about 6 minutes. So that was that's what we did with the pre-show.
You finished?
Never finished. Okay. But he does look a little bit like Tommy Shelby's uncle, right? He's got a little bit of something there. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Episode 64.
The hat's coming off.
Don't leave it on. Oh.
No, the hat's off now.
Once a Peaky Blinder, always a Peaky Blinder.
Yes, by orders of the Peaky Blinders.
By orders of the Peaky Blinders.
Do you know I've only ever seen one episode of that in my entire life?
No, I feel like I've lived in the garrison watching Out, as in I've spent so much time immersed in that show.
Loves
different conversation.
It's a great show.
We should start we should start a podcast where we discuss TV shows, but we could discuss that on another day.
Well, we do that every day on the Daily Show on Friday with Chantal Rickards, ex-CEO of BAFTA Los Angeles. Do continue.
Are you dying on me, Russ? So, welcome to episode 64 of the ABC of CBD. Today is called The Story of Sam. Before I give my little introduction, as I usually do, let's get a quick word in from our sponsor, and then we can just smash this show out. And
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Boom.
I don't think we're on sync today, Russ.
What's that? What's the matter with you?
Because I literally didn't even finish my sentence. I didn't finish my sentence before.
Yeah, but I was bored. I was bored. I wanted to move on.
Fine. Can I finish my sentence? You're going to play something else.
I might play Who Stole Ronnie's Pickle if you're not very careful, Maisie.
I don't even know what that means. It sounds like a Jimmy Savile
my
game,
new
but
song
we'll use that for a different game.
Music by Ray Gelato, lyrics by me and Ray Gelato. It's all about somebody stealing Ronnie Cray's pickle from his sandwich.
Oh, fine. You don't want to do that. Anyway, so like I was saying, like before the advert, we've got an incredible story today. It's called The Story of Sam. So I'm going to give my little introduction. Then we're going to bring on Sam, and we're going to try and keep this show together today, Russ. We're going to try.
You're in a funny mood today.
I am in a funny mood. I don't know why.
You're in a weird space. What's going on?
No, I actually feel okay. Just I'm a bit tired.
I'm not convinced you are okay today.
No, I promise you, actually, I'm okay. I'm just a little bit tired. Do you think I'm being a bit rushy?
No, I think you're being not quite Ollie. Let's go. I discovered, by the way, Veronica Curran, who's up in Edinburgh, that one of the twins just decided to jump on a plane and go up to Edinburgh for a little holiday. Anyway, so I had to restart. Anyway, hi, Veronica. And hi, lad, says Facebook user. So you'll be watching on the espresso bar.
Awesome.
Which is another thing. Anyway, lovely.
Thank you to everyone who's watching.
You betcha.
Sorry about my energy, Russ. Let's try and pick that up a little bit.
Stop apologizing.
I
I
haven't really
worry.
stopped
I
today.
worry. You're like another of my adopted kids.
I love that. How many adopted kids you got?
Well, I got Phil Dave, obviously. He's one of
Legend.
my adopted kids, obviously. I got you. It's enough for the
Legend.
time being. I have to worry about you all.
Yeah. Thank
Got
you.
Howard.
It's nice to be cared about.
Got Howard, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Someone needs to look after Howard. By the way, Howard is the one who put this shit together.
It was Howard, my business partner, who said, I've got this bloke. I don't know anything about it. See what it's all about. And that was 64 shows ago.
Yeah, Howard.
So it's all down to my business partner, Howard
de
Jameson.
Mesquita. They're the two men who made this magic happen. So you can thank them for this education you're getting on a weekly basis. Okay. Anyway, Russ, I love you. I'm back. I'm here. I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm happy. I'm
Carry
happy.
on. Carry on.
So, welcome to the ABC of CBD, live on Men's Radio. An incredible episode last week focused on Claire. She bravely shared her story and her journey to medical cannabis. She shared her experiences of the black market. She shared her trials and tribulations of normal conventional medical care. She shared her suffering. She shared her suffering of a lost life due to ailments that could not be suppressed. And she also shared how simple yet illegal incredible cannabis plants reduced her reliance on pharmaceutical meds to zero. So basically, she shared this incredible story.
Amazing woman.
From 480 tablets a month, 16 tablets a day, 9,000 milligrams of this painkiller, 9,000 milligrams of that painkiller, literally a cocktail of concoctions, probably destroying her from the inside out. She managed to, she manages to find her salvation in cannabis, and she doesn't even seem to consume that much, which is kind of incredible. So that was just kind of blew my mind last week. And every time I think about that story, I'm just kind of reverted back to speechlessness. She is an incredible advocate for this space. And, if anyone else can, show her support, share her video, share her story, you might know people who are also suffering from the things she's suffering with. They might be going through the journeys which she's already gone through. And maybe they might be able to find some salvation in the same way she has. So just bear that in mind when you do listen to these stories. They are real. And if you do know people who might be suffering in the same way, please share them, because that's why we're here. It's the most important thing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Miracle stories always seem to have deeper levels. There is always more to a story, and miracles won't work for everyone. Yet that's the thing. When used correctly and administered correctly, cannabinoids could theoretically work for everyone. You just have to try them out. Or a loved one of yours just has to try them out. And if Claire's story is anything, or if Sam's story today is going to tell us anything, what do you have to lose? You're in so much pain anyway. Why not try and find your release from that? Our guest today has a similar story to Claire, and similar to last week, I'll only give a brief introduction. Sam has suffered from debilitating pain. He has tried conventional pharmaceutical route. He has felt the consequences. He has then found cannabis, and life is easier. Sam works in the cannabinoid industry. He's actually one of my colleagues. He's an activist. He's an advocate in his own right. He is a medicinal cannabis patient, a legal medicinal cannabis patient in the UK. And like many of you out there, he has experienced his journey suffering, but now he has found his true medical solution. So for all you other patients out there, remember, it's your job to spread the word about this. If you want to come on the show, feel free to come on the show at any moment of time. We want to share your stories. We want to influence from a patient to patient perspective, because that's the only way, that's the only way we're going to get through to people. You're not going to get through to people through anything else except you guys sharing your stories with other yous. So before we, bring him out, I just want to say thanks to all the patients who have come on recently, everyone who has shared your story, and just remember to keep on spreading the word of cannabis. It's really important to get more people who are suffering to kind of find their hope, and this could be their hope. So just, thank you. So let's bring on Sam. I am a bit scatty today. You are right, Russ. I feel it. Now, after that, I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm scatty. I'm probably going to be scatty for the whole show now.
Seems like a normal day for you, Ollie, to be honest.
I don't know. I just feel a little bit more...
So this is another of your colleagues. Wowza.
This is Mr. Sam Berry.
Yep.
He's a superstar, as you're about to hear. I actually kind of really like working with him because of the fact that he actually understands cannabis from a different perspective to most people. A lot of people look at it as a commodity. Sam looks at it as something that's actually changed his life. And you can see that when he interacts with clients and with with colleagues, who always talks about, the efficacy behind a product. And it's actually we have a lot of fun when we go to these expos and stuff together, because I feel like he's actually on that wavelength because he's lived that journey. There are a lot of people in this industry who haven't lived that journey. And I don't think it's very hard to understand when you haven't experienced it, when you haven't seen what cannabis can do for people, when you haven't seen the positive implications cannabis has had on your own life. It's very hard to kind of put that much belief in this plant. But like with me on my journey, I know how much CBD alone, let alone the greater cannabis plant, has helped me. And as you're about to hear from Sam, and as we heard from Claire last week, it's just incredible how wonderful this plant could be. And anyway, sorry, carry on. So Sam, tell us about yourself.
Okay, where do you want me to start? I was born in Essex 40 years ago.
That's enough for the show. We can't take any more excitement.
I'm the youngest person here still. Essex.
Yeah. Okay, we won't go quite back that far, I guess.
No, fine. So let's talk about your issues. Let's talk about what you've suffered from. Like what are your actual issues? What have you suffered from? When were you diagnosed? Like how it was diagnosed, etc.
Sure. So I suppose this all started really for me in 2013. I had a foot injury that led to me going to the gym in a cast for a few months. And in recovering from that, I ended up giving myself a hernia. And now an inigual hernia is not a particularly serious injury. It's relatively minor from the NHS's point of view. It's a long waiting list. I actually decided to go private to get it done quickly because I needed it done then so that I was healed in time for things later on in the year. And so waking up from the first operation had no particular issues. Went home that night, woke up in the middle of the night after the first operation and was in searing pain and actually passed out on the way to the toilet. Woke up on the bathroom floor in absolute agony, and just didn't really understand what was going on. Obviously had to wait until the morning. Called the surgeon because it was private. I could call the surgeon on his mobile and ask him what was going on. He assured me it would pass, and just to carry on taking the pills I'd been given, which was a combination of some nerve pain drugs, anti-inflammatories and painkillers, the conventional cocodamol, kind of nerve pain type drugs.
The standard pharmaceutical, like cocktail beverage they give you when you leave a hospital.
Here is some codeine and some paracetamol and some naproxen and some I forget the other drug, but there was a cocktail. I would say my pain in those first few days was a 9 out of 10 consistently. I probably got a slight reduction for an hour or so when I had the codeine. It was the only thing that seemed to sort of take the pain away at all for an hour or so at a time. This went on for 5-6 days. By the 6th day, I'd been in to see the surgeon again. He gave me a load of local anaesthetic injections into the site, which relieved it very briefly, but was incredibly painful at the time, as I'm sure you can imagine, sticking a needle into a very painful part of your body. It didn't help. And so a few days later, they put me back into surgery, had a second operation, with the assumption that there was maybe a suture through a nerve, and that they could remove.
This was straightforward, Sam. Just to be clear, this was a straightforward hernia operation.
Yeah. So
I got to tell you, the only reason I'm asking and it's resonating is I had
to go get a hernia operation.
No, I had it. It was I was doing a lot of heavy lifting, and I had to go and have a double hernia operation. So hearing this is making my stomach knot up.
I was told many times that almost everyone is back out on the golf course after a couple of days, and you can pretty much carry on normal activities very quickly after having this operation. So had the second operation, where they cut me open again, went in, removed some sutures, had a check that everything looked okay, and everything did look okay. They obviously stitched me back up, woke me up, and this was sort of the most traumatic bit of this for me, which is that I woke up to the sound of someone screaming. That was my first conscious thought, was that I can hear someone screaming, and then I realized it was me, that I was screaming, and that I was in.
I told him not to hold back, by the way, guys. I'm for anyone watching this, I'm so glad you said don't hold back. So
it's a very rare case.
It's very important we will hear this, though. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah,
I'm just literally dying here, Sam.
Yeah, so essentially, was in a lot of obviously in a lot of pain. They then came over and gave me all the morphine they can give you legally, all the local anaesthetic they can give you legally. It turned out they hadn't given me any local anaesthetic because they were so sure that it was, going to be completely fine after they'd taken these sutures out. And it turned out it wasn't. And that obviously when he'd cut into me the first time, he just cut through some nerves, which were obviously then exposed. And then I was in a lot of neuropathic pain. I stayed in hospital for 3 days on a morphine drip to deal with the pain. And then when they released me, I went home. Fortunately, I was running a business of my own at that time, which enabled me to sort of work from home, because I stayed at home without, I wasn't able to put clothes on really for 3-4 months.
3-4 months.
Jesus.
Because of the pressure. Was that because of the pressure of the clothes?
Yeah, so I couldn't put on a waistband on a pair of boxer shorts or a pair of jeans, or certainly a belt. I mean, I didn't put a belt on a pair of jeans for a year, probably. So it was a tough year, that one.
So this was, just to rewind, sorry, Sam, just to rewind, I'm not trying to make you relive it in glorious technicolor, but I'm using my words carefully, as we must for legal reasons. Did this stem from some sort of mistake?
Medical
negligence? Was it an error? I'm struggling to know what happened here.
So damaging nerves in an operation is something that you essentially sign your rights away for. It's not something that apparently a doctor, I don't know, but it can really do anything about. I don't think you can really see nerves as you cut through the tissue. I was just part of that very unfortunate
1 in 30 million people who will suffer the way you've suffered of that operation.
Yeah, that's it. So just because of maybe the layout or where my nerves were or where he did the cut, I'm not sure. But yeah, it was just bad luck. He did cut through those nerves, and cutting through those nerves is what has done me the damage. But it's not something that there is any, there's no claim, because there is no blame, because I've signed my life.
Just quickly, how long into this year, so let's say from first operation until you finally put a belt on, were you actually diagnosed with nerve damage? Because I don't think, was it called like when they put you back under, they put you back under with the knowledge that it was nerve damage, or they put you back under thinking it was a stitch, right?
Yeah, they put me under thinking that there was a suture. Because so basically, this operation, the way they repair it is to stitch a patch over the top of the tissue to stop the intestines, whatever, pushing through. So the patch was in the right place, but they put 4 little sutures, one in each corner, to hold it in place. Now they eventually are not the point your body absorbs the patch and it repairs. And the repair was good. It is a good repair, and the repair is fine. But the initial, cutting through was the problem. Now it's impossible for them to know exactly what happened and how it happened. But the assumption was there is a suture through a nerve, and we'll remove those sutures and the pain will immediately go away. And that obviously didn't happen. So then I went home and was in immeasurable pain for these first couple of weeks. Were they were some of the worst times of my life. The pain was, as much as I could handle it. So I was, a couple of weeks. I was probably 3-4 weeks into taking all the tablets and just sitting in just a stupor for weeks. Couldn't do anything.
So can I ask a quick question? So basically, they've cut you up. You've now got nerve damage. You're at home. And like, was there interaction with this private medical? Was there interaction with them about, is this curable? Is this going to be for life? Will you heal? Won't you heal? As in, like, what information were you being given? Like, could you, as in, like, was your, I know you couldn't put clothes on, but was your, like your mobility, could you move? As in, like, what was going on? Sorry, I'm just trying to get the picture.
Yeah, sure. So the fact that you're
not that you haven't already painted an incredibly morbid picture, but I'm just
graphic.
kind of graphic picture, but I'm just saying, more of a picture, even more.
Okay. So I was talking to the doctor every day in those first couple of weeks after the second surgery, and I was out of hospital. I was talking to him pretty much every day, saying this still isn't going away, and he was just saying, look, it will fade, it will take some time, it may take a few months rather than a few days or a few weeks. But it will fade over time. Keep taking the tablets. It's kind of all you can do. It certainly isn't something that there is a fix for, because if there's nerve damage, you can't do anything about it. It's nerve damage.
Fine.
You know, I was on the cocktail of the pharmaceuticals. I was in a total stupor at home. I mean, I was just living from 1-2 hours, because every 2 hours I was taking some sort of pills, and so it was a case of sort of looking forward to the next point where I was
You
gonna take
do.
some-
It's how you when you're in that amount of pain, and I've been there for other matters. You are counting off the time until you can take the next dose. It's horrendous. And the other thing, just to underline that Sam has mentioned so clearly, this is such a regular kind of nothing operation that you go in, they patch you up, and you are out and job done. And as you said, people are often on the golf course, you know, a few days later, the feeling is right as rain. So it's really, really bad luck.
I was
Really
in
bad
the
luck.
best shape of my life when I went in for the operation.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So I want to go back a little bit. So how was living life before? I want to call it
Yeah,
the
I was
accident,
very
because it
active.
wasn't your accident, it was the accident.
Yeah, so I was very active. I was in very good shape. I had visible abs at the point that I went in for the operation. You know, I was in very good shape for a man of whatever it was. How long ago is it? It's a long time ago now. But
33.
years.
You were 7 years ago.
Yeah, so you know, I think it was 8 years ago now. But yeah, so I was in
then.
very good shape. I was training a lot. I was, you know, on my work, I was quite physical. Some of my work was quite physical, moving boxes around and stuff all the time. So, you know, I was in good shape. I was very, very healthy. And part of the reason that I didn't want to wait is because I knew that I would just make it worse by training. So I was like, I'd rather fix it now, have it fixed, and better just carry on living my life. And that's not obviously how it panned out.
So what were the implications after the accident? As
So,
in, like,
yes.
in terms of your life implications, as opposed to the medical and this and that. As in, like, how was because that's also really important. People don't realize that, you know, you're living one life before and then you're living one life afterwards, and it's important to share that part because you know then it kind of makes the rest of the story, you know, all make more sense.
So I was living in a house share in Earlsfield in southwest London, and I was living to an extent my best life. I had a business that I loved. You know, I was traveling into Brussels quite often for work. We were running conferences and political events, and I was running an advertising business, and I was happy. I had a balance in my life that I was really happy with. And then all of a sudden I was a shut-in, and I basically couldn't leave the house, and I was having people bring me round food and supplies, and, you know, literally to my bedroom, because I couldn't. I had an ensuite bathroom, which was fortunate because sitting up, laying down, I couldn't really do anything but sort of sit in a laid back position, because that was the only position in which I was even slightly comfortable. So this went on for a few weeks.
Just one more thing. Before you were injured, were you a cannabis user?
So I'd smoked joints at parties and nights out and stuff. I wasn't a regular cannabis user. And I certainly, at the point of having the operation, I hadn't smoked cannabis for a long time. I'm going to say 8-9 months, maybe a year. It certainly wasn't part of my life.
So you were one of those guys when you were a bit drunk, if someone said, want to puff on this, you would take a puff on that, but you were not really one of those guys who would ever go looking for it. So you weren't like a recreational cannabis user, really, to be honest with you.
A regular, I would say I was a recreational cannabis user, as in, if I was at a festival or a music event, whatever, I'd smoke a joint, but I wasn't an everyday consumer of cannabis at that
point. So it wasn't, so really, to cut to the chase, it wasn't forming a major part of your daily life.
It wasn't
not
part
at all.
That's
it. That's it.
I just wanted to get that out.
Yeah.
So now, before I interrupted you 6 times there. So the implications after the accident, you're sitting there, you're counting the minutes in between the pharmaceuticals. You have limited mobility. You're thanking God you've got this ensuite bathroom, because you can't actually travel that far because of the pain you're in. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah. So this has obviously gone on for weeks, and it was psychologically a very tough time. It was, you know, the pain was so much that you just wanted the pain to stop, basically.
I'm so sorry.
I spoke to my brother-in-law, actually, and, you know, everyone knew what was going on, and he said, "Man, you need to smoke a joint." And he's like, "I will bring you around some weed." And so he brought me around some weed one day, and we went in the garden and smoked a joint. And I would say within 4 or 5 days, So another implication I'd forgotten about was that I was continually constipated because I was taking all these opioids.
Yeah, well,
right?
they're one of the side
That's
effects.
one of the
aren't
side
they?
effects. Yeah.
Yeah,
You haven't got enough aggravation at that point.
Which
And
when
you
you
haven't got enough pressure on yourself.
Yeah, which when you've got all this pain in your stomach is not actually what you need at all. So that was one aspect of it. So anyway, I smoked this joint this day, and then over the course of 4 or 5 days, that became what I was doing regularly. And I very quickly filtered out all of the pills. And after 4 or 5 days, there were no more pills, and I was just smoking weed to get through the day rather than eating pills to get through the day.
It's just like Claire. It's literally just like Claire.
Can we delve in a little bit deeper, if we might?
Of course.
So your brother-in-law pops round and says you're going to have some cannabis, and you do that, and then over the course of 4 to 5 days, how much are you then smoking, and what's the immediate effect?
So I would say I was probably smoking 3 or 4 joints a day, and which I consider to be a lot. Actually, I was probably waking up, smoking a joint, and at the point that I felt like I wanted another one a few hours later, I'd get another one. But I very quickly stopped taking the nerve pain drugs. The cocodamol still gave me some relief, so I was still taking that, but I stopped taking ibuprofen or whatever the anti-inflammatory was, and the nerve pain drugs.
Why did you decide? But what did you decide to do that because you could? Was the pain physically subsiding, or it's so important to sort of get a real clarity on?
I think it was that I felt like all the way through that 2 or 3 of those drugs were doing nothing beneficial for me at all. The only thing that gave me any relief was the codeine and cocodamol. And so now I felt like I was getting the relief. Like I suppose to an extent, I forgot that I had the pain. That was sort of the thing. I was realizing that I could sit and watch. There was a series on Netflix I was watching that everyone was watching at the time, and I could just sit and watch an episode of that and enjoy watching an episode of that, and realize I've just watched an episode of a TV show. Whereas for the previous few weeks, nothing could take my focus away from the pain. And so I was able just to sit and watch a TV show and go, oh, I've just watched that whole show, and I'd sort of forget about it for a minute. So yeah, and then I mean, it was like I say, 8 to 12 months of going from a 9 pain level to like a 6, and as I sit here now, I'm probably at a 2, right? So, and that's as low as it ever gets. And
I've got to ask a question, and feel free not to answer it, please. So your brother-in-law, who will remain nameless, pops round with this one joint. Where's the rest of it? Don't do names and addresses, for God's sake, but I'm just curious.
Phone number,
obviously,
please,
you'll get it on phone number and registration of the car. Presumably, this is illegal. You're getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So bear in mind, I'm living in Southwest London, in Wandsworth. It wasn't that I knew people.
Not too tricky. Not too tricky in Southwest London.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm pretty sure at one side, I don't even remember who. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. No. The point I was trying to get.
It's good you don't remember. It's better you don't
remember. He was stoned off his face. He can't remember anything. So the point about it is, what I'm trying to get towards is Ollie's point, and Ollie has made this point so many times, and it's the most crucial point in the argument. To alleviate your pain, you had to do something illegal.
Yeah.
That's the crux of what I was trying to get.
Yeah, which I was very much not doing at all. Up until that point, and I'd been going through that pain for a number of weeks, and I was almost reluctant to, I suppose, because I sort of believed in the process. I believed in the advice and the process that I was given.
But why wouldn't you?
So that's exactly what.
Why wouldn't you? So would I.
It's exactly what the patient said last week. She thought that she was, one more appointment, one more phone call away from finding the answer, finding the cure.
Sure.
So you think the doctor is this conventional medical system, which we all turn to. I would turn to the doctors. If I had one of these things, I would turn to doctors first. It's what we do. We turn to the medical professionals because they are the professionals. Yeah. And you put your faith in their hands, you put your life in their hands. And I understand why you would, like I said, when you're speaking to your doctor every single day and you're having this communication, I would understand why you would put all belief in him, because he does actually want to help. He just unfortunately,
and it's not just
couldn't.
it's not just that, of course. With something like, and just remind ourselves, this was a bog standard, if there is such a thing, hernia. You'd have to go to the doctor. This is not something you can, magic away. It needs a physical operation. It needs a repair, where the wall, if you like, that has been breached needs to be repaired, and that makes everything strong again. Having been there, I know. So you do the conventional route.
Yep.
Can I ask you a question, Sam? After this whole ordeal, what's your view of traditional medicine?
I mean, I have nothing but the utmost respect for doctors and the medical profession. Like I think what the NHS and doctors and medicine, I think, are two different things. The NHS is a government-run organisation which will always be slower and more lumbering towards sort of new medical advances than maybe other countries and other places in the world, which are slightly more dynamic and progressive than the NHS will ever be. It's why obviously I'm part of the private medical establishment with cannabis. I reached out to a private medical clinic, saw a doctor who works as a pain specialist and not a pediatric surgeon, but he works with very sick children as well in the NHS. And then he sort of locums with one of these private clinics dealing with pain issues. So he's a doctor that works in the NHS, and he also understands the benefits of cannabis, which is why he's prescribed it to me. So yeah, look, everyone's working with the same information, which is the only thing that I can give you is cocodamol and nerve pain drugs, and that's all there is for it. But that's because there isn't another page in that book that says, or you could try cannabis, because that might also help as an anti-inflammatory and a pain suppressant.
I understand that. I kind of like your first interaction with medical cannabis. I like the whole brother-in-law bringing something round. It's kind of nice as well, because it's coming from someone you love, so it's coming from someone you trust. So it's that certain, you're more likely to trust a friend than you are to trust a stranger. And if a stranger had come up to you and said, try medical cannabis, you might have said no, and then you wouldn't be where you are now. You wouldn't have got yourself to a point of comfort. So, back onto what I said originally, it's important for everyone out there to go and tell their friends and tell their loved ones, because I'm a stranger, so they might not believe me. So it's important for people to go out there and, convince their loved ones to try things. Because Sam, you must love your brother-in-law for bringing you that first J. You must absolutely love him. Is he still your brother-in-law?
Yes, I don't want to incriminate anyone, but yes.
Okay, fine. Do you like him more than you like your sister?
Where are you going with this?
No, just curious, because he saved him. Like, theoretically, he was like that miracle worker. He's the one who brought the.
I'm very fortunate to have a very good relationship with my sister and my brother-in-law. They're very cool people. Yeah.
You're not picking. Okay, I just thought we could start a little family ruck live on air. Not going to do that then.
I can only apologize, Sam. I'm so sorry. The important thing, which is the whole thrust of what Ollie wants to do with this section of the series of the shows, is at least to make people aware. It may be too far to say. One thing we're not saying, and one thing that, as co-founder of Men's Radio, I can assure you I'm not saying, is please ignore conventional medicine. That would be a terrible thing to do.
Definitely don't ignore conventional medicine.
We're not saying that at all. It's not some hippy-dippy nonsense. We'd never say that. And in your case, Sam, conventional medicine, of course, to have an operation was the only way to go. You can't.
And I would always say go conventional medicine first.
Totally so. But Ollie's point, and I have to say, over the 64 weeks, he's completely made me do a 180 and say at least consider it. See what the options are. If everything else isn't working, at least have a look at it and see. Because as my late dad used to say, well, what's the worst going to happen? You're probably not going to be any worse off, are you?
It's important to understand that, like I've mentioned on previous shows, cannabis is not it's not just the plant that kids smoke to get stoned. There are so many other active ingredients within the cannabis plant, all of which have their directional benefits. And just because, the conventional idea of cannabis doesn't appeal to you doesn't mean that this medical world of cannabis doesn't have something that works for you. You know, I've made cannabis-based products for Russ, yet he's never got stoned off of them, but they have helped him with his sleep.
Yes, to make it clear,
they're CBD-based products with terpenological directions or things like that, which have their benefit and their purpose. And it's important for you guys to not turn away and turn shy of this industry, because I understand you might not want to get stoned, but you don't have to get stoned to maybe find what's right for you.
Can I just reiterate what Ollie's saying? It's a really key point. And I'm not saying this is a moral thing. I'm not standing on any podium, and because people should leave their lives the way it's none of my damn business.
Hell yeah.
I've never done drugs. I don't do drugs. It doesn't play any part in my life. It has no allure to me. I'm not interested. And believe me, with my life, which I led in New York and here and in advertising and radio, it wouldn't have been a problem. But I've never touched it. And I don't do that as a hooray for me. It's just like I don't like beetroot. There you go. Other people love it. I don't. So there's a world of difference between kind of Ollie and myself. So I'm coming at it from a very kind of straightforward point of view of learning. So please don't think we're all sitting here going, yeah, get off your face on drugs. Absolutely the last thing we're saying. But, you know, the examples, the fantastic guests like yourself, Sam, that Ollie has found, it's nothing to do with me. It's all down to Ollie Mammon, has been an eye opener. That's all we could ask.
So back to Sam. So medical cannabis came into your life. Yep. How long were you still suffering for until, you know, you got back to a life that resembled normal life of before?
So it was, I mean, to be honest, after I sort of transitioned from the pharmaceuticals to the illegal cannabis at that point, you know, it was still a rough year. You know, it was a rough year, and it took me about a year to really get to the point that I could do all the things physically that I could do before, and it never really fully went away. Now, I don't really like smoking. I don't like cigarettes, and I was smoking joints, and it always sat badly with me that I was doing something that was unhealthy.
Yeah, you're a health freak at the end of the day.
Well, you know, if we were born and we were given a car, and that is the car you've got to see you through your whole life, I think you would look after that car. You would change the oil, you would maintain it, you put the right. If that's it, because we can throw away cars.
Wow, do you know, I've never heard that analogy before. That's damn good.
But we get one body, and we don't look after it. I think, you know, people say that I don't think my body's a temple. My body is probably more of a nightclub than a temple. But I also think you need to kind of.
It's string fellas. Your body's string fellas.
Yeah. But, you know, there's a balance to be had. And you know, I used to go to festivals and party and stuff more when I was younger. I don't do this much now, but there is always a balance to be had. And I think it's important what you eat. I think it's important that you do exercise, you drink plenty of water, and you do all those kind of things. So, yes, I always sat badly with me that I was smoking unfiltered tobacco from a cigarette rolled into a joint. And then it felt to me like the paranoia that I would get was that I'm doing something that could be killing me. And so that never sat.
Totally get that.
So
totally understand.
I've discovered a herbal vaporizer probably 7 years ago. So I've moved from, you know, it was only a year or two maybe of smoking, and then I got my first little sort of handheld vaporizer to put the cannabis in. So I started using that then, and that was a game changer for me. It's different smoking a joint. It's definitely a very different sort of a sensation, but I feel like you can measure your dose correctly and you can get what you need. The analogies with alcohol aren't always helpful, but I think the idea that, you know, I can have a glass of wine, as in I can use my vaporizer, which does what I need it to do. It takes the edge off. Whereas I feel like for me, smoking a joint would be like down in a double straight vodka or something. It's too strong for me. I don't need that much. And so the vaporizer was a game changer for me. I got in touch with a chap that runs the United Patients Alliance, used to run the United Patients Alliance. I don't think he's involved anymore, but Alex, and he put me in touch with a clinic called Integro Clinics. This was about just over a year ago. So up until a year ago, I suppose I was part of the black market. I then got referred to this agency or this clinic. I spoke to a doctor there, told him my story as I've told you today, and he said, you're an absolute.
Wait, hold on for 1 second. Let's go back a bit, okay? Because you're rushing. Okay,
I'm trying to get.
Don't worry.
But this bit is absolutely key to everything that Ollie's been trying to push as an agenda.
Yeah, fine. But I just want to ask, what were your experiences of being an illegal cannabis user? I still want to talk about that black market. And you could talk about positive experiences, you could talk about negative experiences. Last week we heard some extremely negative experiences, like really freaking bad. And it's just like really bad experiences.
I still can't get over it. It was
literally.
If you're just joining the show, it was last week, and a very, very charming woman who, instead of paying for drugs, was asked to in a car park to give sexual favors. I'll try to clean that up.
And she's a patient. She's vulnerable. She's not there because she wants to get high. She's there because she needs to. The
whole thing was revolting.
Have a relief. Anyway, so I was just not to lead your experiences, but I mean, as a patient, mainly as a patient, did you find that any type of cannabis works for you? Are there specific strains that work for you? Was it harder to find specific strains on the street? Was it easier? As in, like, how was your experience of the black market?
I certainly actually didn't have any particular choice. It was just a case of who had what, and you just took what came your way. I hated the fact that I would have to go and meet some kid in a car park that was going to give me whatever he had. Do you know what I mean? Like that was how I would say.
It would give me the willies, to be honest with you.
It's not a nice feeling to be feeling like at any moment you could see blue flashing lights and your life could change forever. So, it was the only legal thing that was in my life. And it was, it was a source of real discomfort for me that I was doing something that could have a massive negative impact on my life. And so, psychologically, that doesn't do you any favors either. And so I was under the impression that medical cannabis was thousands of pounds and was completely out of reach. And in that conversation, I was given an indication as to sort of the real costs of it at this point, a year and a half ago. And so, it's significantly more expensive than black market cannabis. It's probably double, if not more. But for me, it seemed like the right thing to do, that it enabled me to remove all of the sort of worries about doing something that's illegal, to being able to talk openly about the way that I use cannabis, to be able to, talk to my 74-year-old dad about cannabis. I don't think I would have done that had I not been in a position to say, I get this on prescription from a doctor that says that this is the right thing for me to use, and I use it with a medical device, and it's, that I don't have any. I don't feel like I have any shame around my use of cannabis in a way that I think of.
And also, there's a consistency. Again, this is what Ollie's taught me, so I can't claim to be clever on this. There's a consistency. If you're getting it medically, you know what you're getting it. You're getting it for some herb in a car park at midnight. You know what the hell you're getting there. You can be getting
absolutely. So there is a choice of sort of varying strengths of THC and sort of slightly different strains. It's always indica for me, because essentially for me it's an evening and nighttime thing. It's to help me sleep as much as anything else. Sleep has always been a difficult thing since the operation. So I can't lay on my right hand side really without any sort of level of pain. So it just helps me get to sleep as well. But yeah, I like the fact that it's consistent. I like the fact that it's legal and it gets shipped by a courier, a medical courier to me, to home or whatever. It's it's a legitimate business delivering legitimate medicine to me for legitimate reasons.
Are there any positives from the black market?
Well, I mean, just the choice of products out there. I mean, the fact that obviously the people are bringing in stuff from the States that's sweets and lollies and drinks and all these different interesting flavor. I mean, the flavors, I don't see any difference between being a wine connoisseur and a cannabis connoisseur in terms of flavors. Like
it's insane out there at the moment.
So many interesting sort of experiences in terms of just the taste. It's another reason that I really love the dry herb vaporizers, because you really taste the cannabis. There's nothing else in there. People that are smoking joints are not actually consuming cannabis. They are consuming a cannabis and tobacco nicotine mix, which is a different drug.
Unless they're rolling pure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Totally. But the majority of people in this country are not rolling it.
But then also the majority of people in this country, even if they are using it medicinally, don't know they're using it medicinally.
No, absolutely.
So we live in this world where, like even that whole thing of, I come back from work and I'm really, really, really stressed. If you go to the doctor and you say that there is a pill the doctor will give you for you coming back from work and getting stressed, it is a medical disorder. So if you come home from work and you smoke a joint to de-stress, theoretically you're using it medicinally. I'm not saying you are, but I mean, in theory, based on the fact that if you weren't smoking that joint and you weren't drinking an alcoholic beverage and you went to your doctor and you asked your doctor for something because you are wired after work, your doctor would give you something.
It won't stand up in court, but I see what you're saying. It won't stand up in court. No, you got the moral law of what is morally right versus what is legally imposed. Then they don't always dovetail. That's the thing. I understand exactly what you're saying.
I'm saying in a few years' time, when our medical market's a little bit more advanced, the same ailments you go to a doctor for today, theoretically, there should be a herbal option. It might not even have to be cannabis. Maybe it's shatavari, or maybe it's suma, or maybe it's a ginseng. Maybe there's something else out there than a pharmaceutical concoction for your remedial benefits. And it's going to be like that in a few years' time. It's like that in America. If you have anxiety, you can go for a anxiety pharmaceutical-based pill, or you can go for a cannabis remedy. That's what happens out there. So that's what I'm trying to say, Russ. I'm not trying to say about illegal or not illegal. I'm saying, in theory, there is a medicinal angle to most people's actions for consumption.
And let me read
because you're depressed. Do you know what I mean? Is it?
Veronica's saying this. You can buy alcohol, tobacco, and get as many opioids in office hours. It's crazy. I've only recently been given more strain details, but like wine, red or white, sativa or indica, is a choice. Yeah, I'd like to support also. Veronica's really picking up on what Sam is saying. And she said this earlier, but I didn't have a chance to read it out. Veronica up in Edinburgh, as I know. I get angry they give us opioids, although through choice, I would never have taken morphine, all these oxycodone, and for so many years. Always smoked, but less than most. Helpful for my mental health, says Veronica. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the taking the opioids has a massively detrimental effect on your physical and mental health. Like the idea that people could be on those for years, I could not have. No, I couldn't. In the time that I was taking all those pills, I had a business partner that completely took over the business because I was not capable of being sharp enough to actually do anything.
And people live on those, as in that's a life course. People literally start taking them when they're 25, and they live like that until they're 60 years old.
Yeah,
some of my buddies' parents, you see them, they're freaking zombies, and they've been like this for 30 years. And you're like, this is mental. It's it's sad. It's so sad.
I mean, I think CBD has its part to play in the stress and anxiety element of things. You're saying, people come home from work and they're stressed and stuff. I vape CBD through the day. That's how. So when I was prescribed the cannabis medicine, they asked me about CBD, and I said, fortunately, I work for a CBD manufacturer. I have good access to really good quality CBD, and they were like, "That's great. That is that's what we would recommend you use during the day, and then the THC for the evenings." And that for me has enabled me to go. And I'm jumping ahead slightly, but from not being very active at all for a while, I started playing basketball again at the end of, in the autumn of last year. I started playing basketball again for the first time in years. And I'm talking, 8, 9, 10 years. The original injury that led to the hernia was a foot injury, and that sort of put pay to any kind of basketball. So I hadn't played basketball in almost 10 years. And I think that's because my general pain level had gone from a 3.5, 4, and on a bad day, a 5. Like on a really bad day, if it would be at 5, and I just couldn't do anything. Now,
bear in mind as well, guys, a 5 for someone who suffers with pain every day is like a 19 for someone who never suffers with pain. So it's almost this scale of I can't handle my life.
Is there an actual scale? Is there a pain scale? I've no idea.
There is a pain scale, but it's relative. It's
It is
relative.
relative. You're right, but so I would say my experience. So that the whenever you see a surgeon or a doctor talk about pain, they always just use a 1 to 10 pain scale. 10 being the worst pain you could imagine, 0 being no pain at all. So I've not been at a 0 for 9 years, wherever it is at that point. But now I'm at a 1 or a 2 at the most. And I've
Bear
been
in mind, the worst pain you've ever experienced is worse than the worst pain I can imagine. So therefore, your 10 is going to be based on a real factor. My 10 is going to be based on an imaginary factor, which will never be as severe as a pain you've actually experienced. Because how can you imagine something that terrible?
You can't.
And that's why I said it's a scale, and that's why I said it's relative. So you being at a 5 is probably me at a 19. You've worked at me in the office. You see me stub my toe and cry like a little child for 5 minutes. I go into the fetal position on the floor and weep.
Does.
Okay,
Does
so I'm like a wimp. All right, but all I'm saying is therefore the pain threshold for me is a hell of a lot different than the pain threshold for you. And my immense amounts of pain, you'll probably look at me and be like, nothing. I wish I had that every
get
day.
Sciatica, fella. Oh my God!
You as well, Russ. You know real pain.
My experience of pain and my pain threshold has changed. Prior to having the operation, I've got quite a few tattoos, right? I used to love getting tattoos. Used to love the experience of sitting there with the pain. Used to love the experience of healing afterwards. And after having all the operations and everything, I don't have a pain threshold that can manage tattoos. I don't look. I've had.
There's a plus that's come out of it then.
Yeah, I think that essentially I am at a level of pain all the time. That means that my threshold therefore is sort of lower because I'm already in some level of pain. And so that's the thing that I noticed that, you know, even a few years ago, I went to get something sorted out and filled in that I want to do.
Do you know what it's called? Seriously, the only reason I know this is I had a huge car crash 23 years ago and I had to learn to walk again. I can't even tell you the damage it did, but it smashed up my ribs and I couldn't bear even to have a pajama top against my body, even the fabric. And it's called exquisite tenderness. Right. Exquisite tenderness, where you're in so much pain, even the thought of a bit of cotton coming against your, you know, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's what they called it. Yeah, it wasn't much fun. So I really do, I totally resonate with what you're saying. And it's so important what you've been saying, Sam, and continues to be so. So you're working, so just to bring us up to the 2022, you're working now, and your mind, you're not in a mind fog, or
I mean, I've there's never really been a time I've not worked. Like I say, when I had the operation and everything, I ran a business of my own, and so I was able to keep that ticking along, and my business partner massively helped out in sort of carrying it for me in those few months that I couldn't do it. But yeah, I've been working with Taylor Mammon the last 6 months or so, and so my real career background is mostly in marketing and advertising. And in 2018, I saw the first CBD brand that wanted to advertise on a billboard or a bus or something like that, and I was told that there were rules against CBD advertising, and I thought CBD was it's a legal product being sold legally in the shop across the road from the office. But we can't advertise it on a bus or on a billboard on the London Underground. And I thought that was very unfair. Like, we can advertise beer, we can put beer on that, we can advertise all sorts of products, but we couldn't advertise CBD. And so I sort of set about trying to give an equal playing field to CBD brands. And so the first 4 or 5 campaigns that ran on London buses and London Underground and billboards in London, I basically made them happen. I put together a copy approval process with the Advertising Standards Authority, set out what we could and we couldn't say in an advert, and we got those ads approved by the ASA and then approved by Global, as it was, and TFL and everybody else, and we ran campaigns for CBD brands.
So you're one of the first companies to do that. Can I say this right? So you're one of the first company, if not the first company, to do that in the UK. Do you think it was potentially your affinity to cannabis, this fact that you actually had this belief in this plant and this bigger structure, which was probably the driving force which pushed you to actually 100%. Get this done, as opposed 100%. To, let's say, another media company just seeing it as a money ticket?
It's seen as a massive risk because there had been an instance of, it wasn't on an outdoor media platform, but it was somewhere it advertised some medical benefits of CBD, and the ASA had fined them loads of money. And so knee-jerk reaction, all the media owners just said, right, let's just not touch that because we might get fined. It's not worth it. And it was only through, I mean, it took me a year and a half to get the first one approved. And I don't, you know, I became known as the king of CBD at Global at that time. I was the only person that made CBD campaigns run because I had a passion for it. There was one day I was asked to present to the whole company nationally. I was in the office with, you know, this is pre-COVID, obviously. I was in the office with like 30, 40 people in the big boardroom there that you would have seen on Dragon's Den. That's not Dragon's Den, The Apprentice at some point. And presenting to, you know, 300-400 people around the country what CBD was and how you advertise it and what you can and you can't do. But my opening slide was, or my opening slides were, what is CBD? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not skunk, Maui Wowie, weed. Like, I reeled off a load of the sort of street names of cannabis. And afterwards, one of my mates there came up to me and he said, I am 100% sure no one has ever used all of those terms in this boardroom to this company before. That was an absolute
Have we got time very quickly? Have we got time to answer Sinner's question? I came across HTCO in America, where Sinner's recently been. Can Ollie explain briefly what it is?
Fine. So HTCO is very similar to like Delta 8. Okay. So it's also known as like Delta 10. It's basically, it's a transitional cannabinoid which has been synthesized. So it's synthetic cannabinoid which gets you stoned. It's actually made using CBD or using another cannabinoid which passes through a transition. I believe it goes CBD, they convert it to Delta 8, and then they take Delta 8 and they convert it to HTCO. So HTC is like it's a THC but reversed around, but it's a legal THC variant. And the idea is so THC, imagine it's 100%. So imagine that's the strength at 100. Delta 8 is about 60. HTC is about 80. So it's a legal cannabinoid which gets you high, theoretically comes from a cannabis plant, but it undergoes certain transitions to get it to where it is. And it's about 80% the strength of THC. Cool?
Wow.
Boom.
Get you.
I wanted to ask Sam one more question.
Yep.
Okay, because I just want him to talk about this because this is something which I know he's very passionate about. So you're actually a medical cannabis prescription holder. You know, you're talking about how you love driving down the street, knowing full well you can keep your bag of weed next to you, and you know, even if the police were to pull you over, you have this medical exemption which enables you to kind of, you know, just possess it, which is a great feeling knowing that you're not a criminal anymore. And you actually said you're a massive fan of the system. So especially the idea of this medical defense, and that's something Guy Coxall's brought up on our show before as well. But yeah, how are you finding the system? I know you're a big fan of it and you're a big believer in it, and you like the fact you're protected as a patient, but how are you actually finding the system?
There's a couple of aspects to it. One is the service is incredibly professional. Like the people, everyone that I speak to on the phone and the video calls that I've had with both the doctors and the nurses and the sort of because there's two separate businesses involved. There's like the clinic and then there's the dispensary. You deal with them both separately, but they're both incredibly efficient, very professional. It feels like a very professional service to be part of. So that is it's just a breath of fresh air to sort of be dealing with a professional company in that way.
Good man.
For me, so yes, look, being able to walk around with my cannabis in my pocket, knowing that I'm not breaking any rules, is good. It's not sort of the biggest factor for me. I think being able to talk about it, and so I basically like to be part of this statistics. I think that the more people that have a genuine medical need for cannabis that join the legal private medical system, if everybody in the black market at the moment joined the private medical system, the government would not want to miss out on that money, and they would immediately sort of make it legal.
Boom.
Also, the bargaining power of 8 million people saying, you know what, actually make your product better, or we're going back to the black market. Yeah. Companies start to sort their shit out when they know there's billions of dollars on the line. When there's only a couple $100,000 on the line, people, you know, they can slip up because there's only a couple $100,000 on the line. But when there's billions,
it's very much, you know, it's a relative. I think there's still only maybe 10,000 private medical patients in the UK.
No, there's not. There's like 4 or 5.
No, there's way less. Way less.
so less. Yeah, the numbers
it's
are
staggering how small the number. We should have the number at our fingertips.
I thought it was a
We've
lot
done that,
higher
but-
as well, and it's not rising. That's the biggest problem. I'm with you. I think more people need to get on, but there's just not the right turn.
It's actually stagnated, hasn't it?
Yeah,
instead of like a rising curve, it's flatlined, which is.
Well, it was financial certainly at the start. I mean, it was thousands of pounds a month to get just a prescription. I pay £100 a month for the prescription for the first 3 months, and then you get, if everything's fine, you get moved to see a nurse, and you pay £50 a month for your repeat prescription, and then I think it's something like £10-11 per gram, which is
not bad at
more than you pay black market, but not really actually that much.
And on that bombshell, as they say, Sam Berry, what a brilliant story. Thank you so much for being Ollie's guest today. Ollie Mammon, as ever, you are
from his story. I've literally watched myself turn more and more white over the course of this story.
The best part of this evening, the best part is the image of the great Oliver Mammon, Mr. Jeep driver, Mr. Butch, going into the fetal position because he's stubbed his toe. That's going to keep me amused for the next 48 hours. Thank you for joining us here on Men's Radio Station. This has been
God bless you, Sam.
ABC of CBD. And we'll be back at 6 o'clock next week. Until then, stay safe. Bye.
God bless you. Bye.